This morning, before we get on to the introductions, if we could, I'm going to have an invocation by Wesley Davis, followed by the pledge by Tracy Carroll.
Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity that we have to come before you today to conduct the public's business and do what's in the best interest of the residents of Indian River County, not just for today, but for the future. May we use your guidance, your knowledge, and your wisdom in anything that may come out of the discussion and the deliberation. In your heavenly name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Please place the flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning and welcome to Indian River County. In addition to the county commissioners this morning, we have some of our staff members who will be participating. Some include Joe Barrett, the county administrator, Jason Brown, who I think will soon be filling his seat, our county attorney, Alan Blockwood, and Eric Olson, who's sitting towards the back, and he'll be making a presentation. And I'll pass it over to Mayor Kramer now.
Thank you, Bob. We've also got our council here, Tracy Carroll, Craig Fletcher, Brian Hetty, Flora Turner, myself, staff Monty Falls, Tammy Bach, and the man with no name who our acting city attorney, Wayne Comment.
Thank you very much. Under item 4, discussion of regionalization of sewer and water systems, which is the reason we're here today. I've got no particular introductory remarks except to say welcome everybody.
Well, we City Vero Beach is here to listen. We're here to hear what you guys have to offer. So without further ado, let's
Great, and I just will note that everything that we're saying is being recorded, and Adam is videoing it as we speak. So somebody's going to get a good facial expression of Mayor Kramer and a nice view of the back of my head. Quite an improvement. Thank you, Commissioner. So, we'll go on to discussion and presentation by the City of Vero Beach.
We don't have anything to present. We are here to listen to the county, what they have to offer.
Very good. Then we'll move right on to the discussion and presentation by Indian River County. Eric?
Well, good morning. I don't know if you can hear me. Eric Olson, Director of Utilities, Indian River County. I'm going to kind of back up just a little bit. Basically, a lot of the information we're going to talk about here, we're going to keep this brief. Brevity is important today, at least from the staff perspective. I want to kind of give a little bit of understanding as to a little bit about our utilities. You've seen this before, so this is more of a refreshing course than anything else. Basically, we have a franchise agreement both with the City of Vero Beach and also the city has one with Indian River Shores, of which we had a meeting with them yesterday. We're pretty familiar with that. A little bit about, this is the information as we understand it. This information is somewhat old, but it's approximately correct. To give you a little bit of a perspective on the differentiation. That's okay. I'll just go this slide by slide. Differentiation in terms of the representative customers between the City of Vero Beach as they spread themselves out within the city structure itself, the shores, the county being really primarily the South Barrier Island. There are pockets of Indian River County customers that are served by the city, such as the hospital and various areas such as 43rd Avenue, but primarily the South Barrier Island. You kind of get a sense of approximately 12,000 customers, water customers within the City of Vero Beach. The Indian River County equivalent amount of water customers is about 43,700. Kind of give you a sense of perspective. A little bit looking at that thing, obviously you look at the sewer portion, there's somewhat less. We, the county, this is important information to us because in looking at evaluating, presenting a proposal to the city, we wanted to kind of get a sense of what, in fact, is the level of capacity that we need to serve the city itself and that sort of thing.
Eric, can you full screen that so everyone can see the numbers from there on the side?
If you unlock it, Eric.
Okay.
Bill Madison.
I was fixing to say, he does utilities.
Click on slideshow.
See if we can get,
Who's Bob Sheehan?
we've got to bring in the experts on this. All right, basically, this is really kind of one of the important questions, both for water and sewage. To be able to work with the City of Vero Beach, one of the important questions that quite often gets talked about, what is the capacity that the county has to serve the City of Vero Beach today? That's an important question that we need to be able to differentiate. What I want to do is kind of walk you through the process. Indian River County takes and looks at what our current capacity is by adding two different important factors. The first of which, if you look at it in terms of wastewater or water, what we actually treat today, what goes out of the water plant, what comes into the wastewater facility, the physical treatment that we do today. We take a look at that and we add to that. If John Jones, Bill Smith, or Eric Olson pays an impact fee, and this has often been discussed over the last couple of months, if I pay an impact fee but yet have not connected, we calculate that as the capacity that is within the county system. In other words, I have bought a piece of the rock, we calculate it as if it exists. So the sum total of the two capacities, that which we treat physically, plus the amount of capacity we translate into folks that actually have paid their impact fee but have not yet connected, we take a look at that and we sum that up. We take a look at the total plant capacity, and you look at this. This happens to be the example of the water system. We have the physical capacity of 24.7 MGD, physical capacity for the water system. We back out of that those two numbers, the sum total of those two numbers. And again, it's very important to recognize because often this question gets asked. Do you take into consideration those people that have paid their impact fee but not yet connected? And the answer is absolutely yes. So in this particular case, you can see the net available physical capacity for Indian River County for the water system is 12.2 MGD. That's important because we go back to the city and we take a look at it in terms of what your average daily flows are. And we ask ourselves, can we in fact be in a position to serve that? We have a little bit more of an kind of a projected pathway. This gets a little busy, and I apologize because if you look at it for the first time, it's a little bit hard to follow. But the bottom line is you're going to see on there three different lines. The lower line, which appears to be somewhat blue, is actually what we believe to be the physical demand. This is in our water system, that which we treat on a daily basis. We take into that, and you look at the next line, which is the yellow line. That is that concurrency number, that number that if Eric Olson pays his impact fee but does not yet connect, you see that we add those two together. The final line on top of all that is our physical capacity. It's the delta between those two that we ask ourselves, what can we now serve after that when all is said and done? A little bit more graphical way to be able to depict this, you kind of get a sense looking at it in terms of the water system. You can see what our typical max daily demand, we take max demand because we don't want to do it on an average daily demand. We've got to assume a max demand, 10.4 MGD, 10.6 MGD. We take into consideration the calculated amount, and it's a calculated amount based on those impact fees that have not yet connected, and it's that delta in somewhat purple, I guess, whatever, like, but it gives you that net available capacity of 12.2. The same process takes place with the wastewater system. You begin to see the same type of analysis comes into play. In this particular case, taking a shortcut, same methodology comes into play. The wastewater that we treat, 4.9 is our max daily. We typically treat out of the wastewater facilities, and we'll talk about that in a different slide here shortly. But the bottom line is that you'll see the max daily demand plus the committed concurrency gives us a net capacity available to serve of 6.5 MGD. We talked about Indian River Shores yesterday. we're in a position where basically in the process of doing this, we actually went through and said, well, perhaps in the process, we would be able to serve you based on some infrastructure, assuming that the county, that the city did not cooperate in terms of lines. If there is no cooperation, we actually look at it and say, here's some cost. But going forward on this,
Eric, just because we don't agree with you doesn't mean we're not going to cooperate, all right?
and that's
The choice of words.
that's an important distinction on this thing. Maybe that's a bad wording on my part, because basically, looking at this thing, in our mind, and this is from our perspective, looking at this thing, we want to go through the same process and go into the slideshow. Let's just go ahead and translate it in the slideshow. The question, I'm going to fast forward because we really get to the meat of today's discussion. The meat of today's discussion is the proposal to serve the city of Vero Beach. And that's really what it amounts to, serving the city of Vero Beach, what it would take to serve the city of Vero Beach. In looking at the water system, this is kind of the simplest of all the elements, because in essence over time, what has actually been created, absent the shores of the South Superior Island, the city of Vero Beach is in essence the whole of the donut relative to the county being basically surrounding the city of Vero Beach. There are stars that you see there within this particular slide. You'll notice those stars are existing interconnects that exist today. Not in themselves would they be sufficient to serve the city, but they exist today. They're connections that are simply an opening of a valve or a closing of a valve, that sort of thing. We took into consideration, we said, all right, obviously that's not going to give you full capacity and redundancy that we need to be able to serve you, the city, in the process of a merger. So we took into consideration additional connections throughout your system that would connect our system to your system to be able to basically give you the redundancy needed on this process. There is an assumption on the water system. Here's the assumption. The assumption is that the lime softening plant, and maybe I ought to back up a little bit. The city of Vero Beach, as many of you are aware, actually has a dual water system. It's got an RO system, it's about 3.3 MGD capacity, somewhere in that range, and it's got a much larger lime softening system. The lime softening system is the older of the two plants. Our proposal would be to basically decommission the lime softening system. Why is that? That's an important distinction because in decommissioning the lime softening system, you now would convert to receiving totally reverse osmosis water from both your system, which is the remaining 3.3 MGD RO system, plus the county's water system. Now, by all standards, reverse osmosis is probably the state of the art. I know that there have been, perhaps some suggestions on the part of the city that perhaps we want to go into reverse osmosis in the future instead of the lime softening. But proposal today, what's on the table today, is that the county would propose to connect to the city of Vero Beach all of its infrastructure, and that's the simplest process because it is not a complex project. We would decommission the lime softening plant. There's a savings of operations associated with that. There's economies of scale because the balance of that water would be made up out of county water. We made an estimate. We just took a short estimate, basically looking at what would it take to make some connections. And I'm going to qualify this as we move into a couple of these other points and tell you that our information, we have pretty fair information regarding the city's infrastructure. We know pretty much where things are located. We don't have a perfect handle on the exact details of things, so we have to throw rough numbers into this process of estimating connections. But it's relatively simple on the water side. Of all the elements, the water is really the most easily attained merger process. This is really the more complex project. Our proposal and our assumption is that we would, over time, in a short period of time, depending as to how we wanted to move on this, decommission the wastewater facility on 17. The position is that Indian River County has the physical capacity today, the net physical capacity to serve the city of Vero Beach today. And in that process, we look at it under those conditions and we said, okay, in order to serve the city of Vero Beach, we've got to basically be able to do two things, which really amounts to a piping project. The first of which we would have to make interconnects, and where our intention is to basically serve the 3 regional plants within Indian River County. To accomplish that, our intent is to basically go into utilizing the central plant up on 49th by utilizing some existing lines. The city is currently, has just recently constructed a brand new 24-inch force main for their wet weather reuse lines coming from the wastewater plant here on 17th. Our intent was to make some utilization of that to Royal Palm Point. We would then continue on with the force main from that point on to our central plant, and we would transfer some portion, and that's important, a portion of the city's flow at the plant, which is approximately 3 MGD average daily flow at your plant right now, to our central plant. Now, it's important because this is important not only to the city, but it's important to the shores as well. And that is, we would have to reconnect, reestablish the exact same flow plus some of the reuse. That's a very important element. We've talked about it with the shores because this is a very critical component of what their wish list is. So we would reconstruct a reuse line from our central plant to the north, basically back to your water plant system, hook up the pump station, construct a new line to Royal Palm Point, utilize existing lines, connecting it back to your infrastructure for the reuse. Now, we would give you the ability to not only provide what you originally had, but we would also give you the ability to enhance your flows based on our additional capacity. We would be able to say, okay, now the flows going to the shores will actually be enhanced. The southern section, which is where we'll take the majority of the flows from the wastewater plant, will be transferred. A new force main would be constructed southerly on the boulevard to a major transfer lift station we have at Oslo and the fire station, approximately 16th Avenue there. And in the process of that, we have a unique system in this particular lift station because we can transfer flows, interaction, we can transfer flows from that point to our southern wastewater plant down in the Highlands. We can transfer flows to our west wastewater plant out on 82nd Avenue and 8th Street, so we can balance those flows out as needed. We would construct a pump station. The pump station would be on 17th, across from the plant. One suggestion that would make sense would be at the old post office site, which would be pretty easily done. It could be accommodated in such a way that it could be pretty much constructed out of sight. The lift station that we've got at the Oslo and 16th is a very large lift station. It has very large capacity to it. It's virtually underground. It's what they call an inline pump station for the individuals that have a little bit of experience with it. And again, we have the ability to kind of move flows back and forth. As a separate project, not directly related to connecting up the city to the county system, we would also, in the western areas, enhance our reuse lines to bring additional flow from our west wastewater plant back up into the northern regional system. These are some estimated costs. And let me qualify this as we walk through this thing. It's very important to recognize these are order of magnitude costs that we've looked at, and it's a piping project. This is all we're talking about on the short term. This is a piping project. We've looked at it in terms of saying, well, we've got to construct the reuse lines basically from bringing our central plant back to your system. We've got to construct a series of force mains basically to reconnect to your old wastewater plant site. Actually, we'll try to link it to the Royal Palm Point area. We'll construct some additional modifications to the plant. So the estimates are basically, as you list out here, we've added some unknowns. And the unknowns to that is what we call retrofit City of Vero Beach infrastructure. We have a lot of unknowns regarding the specifics of your infrastructure. So we threw in some numbers. Now these numbers are pretty accurate. Let me step back and say this. Indian River County has constructed $104 million in projects in the last 5 years. We've heard this, but let me tell you what this does for us. Our experience over the last 5 years has given us direct experience to construct projects. These are not hypothetical estimates. We've talked about directional bores that we may need to do. We do that on a regular basis. Many, many times we do directional bores through our system, some as large as 24-inch. We've constructed directional bores across the entire Indian River Lagoon over the last several years. So none of the technology here is really something that is new and different to us. It's not unusual for us to do large-scale projects. So our project estimates aren't real far off, but we wanted to be a little bit objective to say to ourselves, there is the possibility there may be lines that we see as what we believe to be in place as part of the city system that may or may not be as part of the city system as we understand it. So we have to put in some fudge factor, if you will. So we put another $4 million associated with that. We have taken a look at things and said, well, okay, when everything is said and done, let's throw a contingency within this. Again, these are unknowns. But looking at this process, even putting in a 10% contingency associated with project costs and estimates that we may not be aware of, the best that we can see whenever we throw everything together is about a $28 million project, more or less. It's a piping project to connect the dots. This would allow us to tie you, the city of Vero Beach, into Indian River County system. It would utilize 3 regional county plants. It would facilitate you to be in a position to be able to basically receive the original amount of reuse that you had originally, plus an additional amount to serve such customers as the shores and other areas that are currently being served right this minute. The offer that's been discussed, and this is what we talked about with the county commission, the county proposes to acquire the city's utility debt. It's estimated to be $24 to $25 million. It could be more or less. A lot of our data is based on estimates that we receive and that we would need to confirm that. But our proposal would be that we would pay off the city's debt associated with the utility. You would become a customer of the county within that process. We would decommission the wastewater plant on 17th. We would decommission a portion of the lime softening plant within the system. Now, what are the benefits? When everything is said and done, what are the benefits to everybody? Everybody within the county, inclusive of those within the city, inclusive of those customers within the county, would see an unusual benefit because the economies of scale would begin to come into play. Operational costs would begin to decrease as a function of less plant operation requirements. You would see staffing savings as time begins to increase. So looking at it in terms of saying, do we really need as many staff as we currently have? That's something to be discussed. But I think by any stretch of the imagination, the economies of scale come into play where everybody becomes a winner under these conditions. And really, who is the winner? The ratepayer becomes the winner because that's what you see as a stabilized system. Indian River County, and I know Jason was out the same issues related to the county. 25 years ago, virtually the county didn't exist as a utility. We all know that. And as time has progressed, the county has grown. Over the last 15 years, the county has grown at an average rate of growth. The utility system is what I'm referring to, at about 2.3%. Today, with the economy at a standstill, it's virtually at a standstill. University of Florida, their expectations are that this growth will begin to go back to 1.5%, and then over 3 or 4 years get back to 2.3%. So the county is seeing reasonable growth. It's not expected to see the craziness that we saw in 2005 and 2006 whenever we were seeing huge numbers of developments coming into play like that. The financial information, we've talked about that quite frequently relative to Indian River County utilities. All I can say to you is that in 2001, and many of you have heard this, and it's important to reiterate, in 2001, the fund balances of the 3 active principal funds for the utility system were $50 million in 2001. In 2010, the fund balance of these same 3 principal account funds were $60 million. Over the last 5 years, and again, we've talked about this several times, we spent $104 million in projects. many of the projects similar to what we proposed in this particular case. At $104 million in projects, not a penny was borrowed. Not a penny was borrowed. Because our position was, let's be prudent, let's look at things, let's try to pass the savings on to people. The county is a utility system in the purest sense. It's an enterprise fund. It is an enterprise fund, meaning that the costs that generate within the utility system are borne by the rates and fees generated by the utility system. It's a closed system. One of the questions that was discussed yesterday with the town of Indian River Shores was that the funds that we create within the utility system, where does that go? We do pay a G&A, general administrative costs, back to the general fund because we're a business. Just like anybody else, we pay rent. We pay a proportionate amount of fee, just like if I put a business into place out in some place in the county or the city. These are the costs that we would expect. But the end result is that the county's financial system can best be talked about within its recent bond rating. 2 years ago, the county went through a bond rating analysis. Fitch Rating Services, one of the major rating services, went through and did an analysis for Indian River County utilities. At the end of that analysis, two years ago, Indian River County Utilities got a AAA bond rating. AAA. Flash forward to today. 3 weeks ago, in the midst of what we would consider to be probably one of our toughest times by any stretch of the imagination, Fitch came back in and said, we want to come through and do a reanalysis of your bond rating. We want to take a look at you in terms of what's your capacity financially. After a thorough investigation one more time, 2 years later, we have a AAA bond rating. There are very few utilities that will be in a position to be able to say we have a AAA bond rating. So, in conclusion, and really from a staff perspective, I would only basically give you a couple things to think about. The offer is that we would acquire your debt service within the utility system. We would pick up the plant and infrastructure within your utility system, owned currently by the city. We would decommission the wastewater facility. We would decommission a portion of the water facility. Within that process, we would then enjoy the rates associated with the county rates. Now, moving forward, can we physically do it? I think we saw that to make it happen today, it's a piping project. We don't have to build plants. We don't have to get in there and reinvent the wheel to get back to square one in this process. So we can utilize infrastructure, plant, and staffing that we currently have today to make it happen. So I'm going to leave this more to you all. If you have any specific questions, obviously I can answer technical specific questions, but I think at this stage of the game I'm going to turn it back to you for us, unless you've got a particular question.
Can I ask a technical? So the City of Vero Beach, our RO system, part of our water treatment plant, that would retain?
Absolutely. It's an excellent little plant. Reverse osmosis gives you some tremendous benefits because reverse osmosis uses a membrane technology that takes out potential contaminants, organic contaminants. It's the state of the art, and we would want to use that.
Any other questions for Eric?
I did have a question. You said this is mainly a piping project, and the piping would run roughly $28 million.
Yes.
And that the total amount of that will be borne by the county.
As we sit here today, I guess we can kind of talk about it, but I want to let Joe Baird kind of...
Yes. It's to be absorbed by the whole system.
Or more accurately, the utility.
The utilities, the whole utility system.
But the City of Vero Beach will not, even though the city residents are county residents as well, and thereby are paying a portion of it to pay, the city itself will not bear any of the costs of the 28.
All the people on the county water and sewer system will be absorbed throughout the whole system. Right now, we're not anticipating doing any other bond issues for that. Now, to purchase your utility, we may add additional debt.
And will there be an expected rate increase to the entire county system for this type of project?
As opposed just to the city?
Everyone's going to have the same rate, and right now in our evaluation, we do not see a rate increase at all.
So you believe you could do this, pay the city the pay for the piping of $28 million, take over the city's debt, and still not raise rates to the entire system?
Yeah. It's
I think
economy of scale.
to kind of give you an answer to how can we do that, and that sounds kind of magic. How do you do that? Because you're talking about nearly $50 million and
Right.
everything is said and done. The economies associated with the merger are tremendous. I mean, no matter how you want to slice it or dice it, the economies are tremendous. Simple, when you look at it in terms of the water that we would treat, additional water related to the city system, when we look at it in terms of the additional wastewater system, it doesn't take a lot of extra electricity, it doesn't take a lot of additional chemicals, it doesn't take a lot of additional personnel, so that you begin to see a delta between the existing rates and the actual cost of service. So, looking at it preliminary, we actually believe we could absorb that within the system. We've done it before with the city of Sebastian in years past, and it's probably, as Joe's indicated, probably something that he's far more expert at as the money into this thing than many of us, but I think we can absorb it in that sense.
Well, you brought up a good question for me when you said you've done it with the city of Sebastian.
Yes.
The city of Sebastian also pays a 6 to 8% surcharge for their services. And I guess I have a question, does that surcharge go to the utility, or is that going somewhere else in the general fund?
We have a franchise tax that everyone pays that lives in the unincorporated area. And when we reached the agreement with Sebastian, and the 6% in the unincorporated area goes into the MSTU to offset taxes. It does not go to, it's a franchise tax, is what it is. It goes to the MSTU, the unincorporated tax, to offset taxes. It does not hit the utility. When we purchased Sebastian, we had an equalization charge, which was 6% like our residents pay. It's not anymore. And that goes into the general fund because they are not in the MSTU to offset general fund taxes. In the event that we were to, in our model right now, we would also charge that 6%. Now the city of Sebastian charges an additional 10% above our 6%, and they put it in there.
Yeah.
Now we do not, as a county, have the ability, because this question is going to come up, can you charge a surcharge up to 25%, as I saw on 32963? We're not allowed to do a utility tax. Only cities in the state law are allowed to do them. We are not. We're only allowed the franchise tax, it's up to 6%. We are not allowed a utility tax. Only cities are, municipalities.
Joe, what do you see happening to our employees? We don't want them dumped on the street.
Actually, we'd love
You'll absorb them?
No. No. I'll be right up front about that. We're part of the economy. I can't bring over all the additional management. I cannot bring all any of the plant operators over. We would not be able to do that. No.
You're going to have someone to work. I mean, you're going to dump all of them? You're going to have somebody
I would
there.
say right now in our model, I mean, I got to be up front about it, about that. It's, we do not see any management at Brink coming over. We would not see any plant operators coming over. Maybe a couple. A lot of your distribution would come over, and a few of your customer service. Other than that, we'd say probably you'd lose almost 50%. And that's just a reality economy of scale. Our job is not to save employers. Our job is to look out for the residents.
I understand that. I needed to know the answer to that.
Yes.
If I can put it in short form, I mean, if we are paying roughly $25 million for the lines and $25 million for debt, that's basically $50 million. And the question is, how do we pay for it without raising rents? And that comes from the economies Mr. Olson was talking about.
I understand that. I needed the answer, and he gave me a straightforward answer, and I appreciate that.
Okay, well, I just wanted to fill it out, because those economies would save in the range of $5 million, and that $5 million covers the debt. So it's not terribly complex, but I just want to make it as clear as possible for the audience and dispel any idea that we have to raise rates in order to accomplish this.
That's why I asked the question, so I didn't know that's where you pick up the economy of scale.
Yeah, and engineers. Your engineers and the utilities, a lot of them would come over. Most of them, in fact, if any. But just got to be up front about that.
Monty, I have a question. The document you handed us this morning when we walked in to the City Council regarding some of the utility issues and dates and times of various meetings states that the current demand of the wastewater treatment plant is 2.8, yet I have a document from Rob Bolton that states that it's 3.2. Which is our, did you hear?
3 million gallons. He's right.
Oh.
He's lurking in the back.
Oh.
Chris, could you repeat that for me, please?
The wastewater treatment plant, what is the current demand of that, Rob? Because I have a document from you, recorded from you that says it's 3.2, and yet Monty's document says it's currently 2.8.
It might be 2.8 today, but if you take a 3 or 4 year average, depending on rainfall and infiltration, inflow, when I say 3.2, that's looking back over about a 5-year period.
We assumed a higher number.
Okay. I also, is the county's south plant currently running at capacity?
No.
That was from a document that Rob Bolton had stated at a meeting. The county does not have one current plant that will receive all of the city's flows. It will be bifurcated to the
We're
different
putting it in
plants.
3 different plants.
Okay. But no construction project is needed to increase capacity.
That's correct.
Okay.
Any other questions of Eric?
Yeah, I had a couple, Eric, and just not in the order, just kind of the order you went through. The treatment process that the county employs for the purification of your water, is it compatible with the neighboring communities? Let's just say St. Lucie County or Palm Bay, should there need to be an interconnect for emergency supply? And if we go to one system, now we have city and county, we're partners. If we have an emergency, we do have cross connect.
Right.
Is it compatible?
I'm not going to tell you with 100 degrees certainty that 100% certainty that they use a chlorine disinfection system. I believe they do, but I'm not. I believe that Palm Bay does use RO to some degree. I'm not sure if it's a total 100% chlorine. Here's really what it gets down to. Indian River County uses a chlorine disinfection system. We don't use chloramines. Chloramines typically are utilized when there's the potential to form an organic substance called trihalomethanes. We wouldn't need that. RO systems take out the organics in such a way that you would not need that. So the city system would be common with the county system, and I believe if you go down into the St. Lucie County area, actually there's very little connection to St. Lucie County. But I couldn't tell you.
It's just a question. If we could answer that, it might give us some level of assurance if there need to be a emergency connection on the
If I
north
were
and
to
the
make
south.
if I were to make a guess, an uneducated guess, this is and I've got to emphasize that, I would say more likely is not they use free chlorine.
Could you get that?
I can find out, yeah.
Okay, and as we come on down, you talked about decommissioning the wastewater treatment plant. Do you have a time frame in mind when that would happen?
I think everybody would recognize that that's a little bit of a complex issue because it's not as simple as, you first of all have to build all your infrastructure. It's not as if one day it's there, one day it's not there, this type of thing. You would probably do it over a period of several years. You'd have to take a look at it in terms of getting everything in place, 2 or 3 years to get something like that done.
So we're talking about 2 or 3 years, not 10 or 15 years?
If we agree to that, let's talk timing on this thing. And again, the devil is always in the details. Let's recognize that. If we agree today that we're going to make it happen, we're going to basically make the transition in the process to do all the piping facilities, all the permit modifications, and there's a series of permit modifications beginning everything from consumptive use permits for water usage to DEP permits for wastewater usage. You're probably talking, under the fastest of terms, 24 months to make something like that happen. That's if everybody moved in absolutely a tremendously high rate of speed. And I wouldn't think that's right. But it could be done in 24 months if you really put everything through caution doing like that.
Okay. When you showed your costs for connecting the wastewater system, I didn't see any costs in there for decommissioning the plant.
We are not assuming the cost to decommission the plant. That's something we could talk about, but that's not part of the analysis.
So if that's not part of the analysis, you would see that as being a city expense?
I would say from a staff perspective, that would be our recommendation, but that's something that would come up.
And that's one of the reasons we stuck 20, we have actually in the cost center, we have 20% for retrofit, what we call retrofit and possibly decommissioning.
$4.2 million.
We've struck a number in there for that, an additional number of about 20% of all what we estimate to retrofit, plus a renewal replacement, and possibly decommissioning.
My understanding with the commission was basically we felt the city wanted to keep the land. If the city wanted to give the land as an asset as a part of the treatment plant, then we would be responsible for decommissioning it, but on the land. If it was the city's intent to keep the land, then they'd have the responsibility to decommission it.
It was just an item discussed, and I was just trying to get the information out for everybody that's listening and watching to see that it's being thought about or not being thought about. You also noted that you do a G&A charge back to the general fund. Where does that show up?
If you look
Forgive
through our
me,
budget, if you look at Indian River County's budgets, and Jason is our expert, probably on him, that it shows as a particular item. But Jason, you can kind of define it more carefully.
We have that. If you look at our budget document, it'll show it in there. There is a G&A charge to cover those overhead costs, to cover those common costs, payroll, these facilities that the utility is in. What that is it's basically a function of salaries and benefits. It's about 10.1% of salaries.
But it's a line item that shows up in the budget?
Yeah, there's a G&A expense
Okay,
account.
I wasn't able to find it. But,
Look at each.
And we can get you the detail on
okay.
that.
It's about $870,000.
Right, you won't find that level of detail in the financial statements. It's combined with the other operating
Okay.
expenses.
And let me explain the G&A charges. Not only charge enterprise funds, we allocate the cost of the commission, the attorney's office, the budget office, the purchasing department, and all those departments, and we charge it to every fund, not just our enterprise funds. It's a cost allocation to a formula developed by a CPA.
I saw it in the text when I was looking at the budget. I just couldn't find the line item, and maybe you can show me when we finish up.
And the finance department from the clerk of the court calculates what that rate is
Okay.
each year. We ask them for the rate for the upcoming year each year. They calculate that, we charge it across all.
That's all the questions I had on the presentation.
Wayne, Joe, real quick, you said something about additional debt of $24 million for the purchase price. Who pays for that?
The ratepayer, the additional debt that was for the $24 million, that'll be paid through the ratepayer.
Yeah, so all the county people and whomever.
It's an overall system at that point. We are a unified system, and it would be a bond issue issued on parity on the open market, most likely if we went that way. There's a possibility. We're going to look, depending on how the market is at that time. You know, it'll be a financial decision. What's in our best interest to borrow the money, maybe pay cash. You know.
But it's not going to show up as a surcharge after the rate.
Let me make that clear that there will be no surcharge. We'll be a full system. All ratepayers in Indian River County, whether you live in a city or not, will pay the same rate. You will pay the 6% franchisee or an equalization. Everyone will pay the same rate. Now, if the city wants to add a surcharge, like Sebastian does, you're welcome to. That's your decision.
I just want to make sure there's clarity that between the end of the rate calculation and the actual total bill, that the only thing you're inserting in there is the equalization charge.
Yes.
Wayne?
And Rob may have to correct me or Lonnie, but as far as the water plant, talking about decommissioning the line softening portion. Now that plant is on city airport property, and I believe is leased to the water department. Are you also talking about the city would, at this point, would be absorbing the cost of decommissioning that plant too?
I'm going to go back to the discussion that Joe had. We do have $4.2 million in what we would call the unknowns relative to the city itself. I also mentioned that the devil is clearly in the details. I have seen information regarding the lease with the airport. We would have to address that in some form or another. I can't tell you exactly what everything is said and done, how that be addressed, but I am aware that there is a lease arrangement. We would have to work with that.
If I may ask a question, I was making notes as you were speaking, and when you originally stated that this was the offer on the table, you stated covering the $25 million in debt, decommissioning the 2 plants, and the piping project, 28. But what you're saying now is that the decommissioning of the plants is not part of the offer. Those are now something the city would have to pay.
Well, let me clarify that. I think, Joe...
Let me say this. It gets into the concept. We don't know if the city wants. We could decommission the sewer plant and keep the land.
Well, that land is city, and a referendum would have to take place to even move the city away from the city property owner.
Yeah. You know, well, and then we would have to look at them, try and get a grant. You could also, we're looking at grants too, obviously, when you were talking about, right now you're on the red list, so it's a possibility. I'm not saying that, that's just, they're trying to to get plants off the river. So, yeah, we'd look at it, and we would decommission, and that's all part of what we're looking at.
And then the,
Or we can do it ourselves and keep the property.
You said we will, but we will only if we give you the land.
Now, I don't know, you have to look at where you're buying your facility. Don't forget, we're buying your facility, underground assets, and your plant sits on that, and we're buying all of that. We're buying your plants, we're buying your underground utility, we're buying it all, and we're going from there now. I assume, and I don't know I don't know what your legal documents say at the city on the plant on the river, the sewer plant. If we bought it as part of the, I don't know if it's an asset that's in the utility's name or not. I don't know, and if it's not, obviously, we're going to be decommissioning it, and I think that's a plus for this. If you ever look at it, I mean, the plant where it's located is going across the bridge. It's not the best location.
Joe, you made a comment that they're trying to get plants off the river. Is that an environmental agency, or who are you speaking of?
Well, I think I think that most people there's movement on not to have plants on the river. I think that's standard all over Florida. I mean, you've seen it, and I don't think that. I mean, if you think you want them on the river, then I agree.
You just made a statement, and just for some historical perspective, the plant's located on the river at a time when that was the state-of-the-art technology for wastewater treatment. In 1978, my senior year in college, I got a newspaper sent from my in-laws who lived in Deer Beach about a big event that was happening in the area. And it was the opening of the 17th Street Bridge. Well, up until the 17th Street Bridge opened, the wastewater plant wasn't in a bad location. But now we drive 30,000 people a day by it, and we all see it. And I'm not saying it's a good spot for the plant. I'm just saying that some things happened that made that a more visible location. And the 17th Street Bridge was chosen to be located in that place because the landing site on the west side of the river was between two industrial uses, and there was no objection from any citizen groups about where the bridge was being located. So I'm not saying that we shouldn't look at moving the plant. I'm just saying there's a lot of factors that we should weigh, and maybe if we're going to move the plant, it's not just a cost that needs to be borne by the city, but there's an overall benefit to the whole area.
did your financial information you showed for the $28 million for the piping project, did that include going around the current property that stands, the current wastewater plant on the river?
Our assumption basically is across the street at the airport, the old post office property, we build a central pump station. The pump station would divide the flows going south to the west and to the southern plant, north to the central plant. Literally, there would be no connection from that point forward regarding those two facilities. Now, there are some unknowns as to what piping is required to be maintained at that point. That's some of the unknowns that we have to deal with right this minute. That's why we put such a large, what I would call contingency based on the city's unknowns, $4 million associated with this thing. And it may be that that $4 million isn't needed. But we assume that we would bypass the plant 100%.
Okay, thank you.
I want to go back to the 6% franchise fee. I need some clarity so I understand it better, I guess. I think I heard you say earlier that that went into the 6% is charged to everyone. And I assume when you said everyone, you didn't mean just utility. You meant everyone that uses our right-of-way, like cable, telephone, electric company, etc., pays a 6% franchise fee for using our right-of-way. Is that correct so far?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, then the 6%, if it was charged, and it goes into the MSTU, and you said we charge the 6% also to the city of Sebastian, but that's not our right-of-way. And the city of Vero Beach would be our right-of-way, so is that a different 6% franchise fee, and would that go in the general fund? Would it be considered utility tax, or would it go into the MSTU?
What we charge in the city of Sebastian goes into the general fund, because it wouldn't be appropriate to put that in the MSTU fund because it doesn't
And that's called a franchise fee and not a utility tax.
we're not allowed to do utility taxes.
I know, but is it semantics or is it?
They call it, yeah, they label it something else.
Well, no, it actually is different rules and has different percentages because counties in the state law are only allowed to charge up to 6%. Municipalities are allowed to have a utility tax, and like Rob Wolf pointed out, they go up to 25%. And so they got, and we're saying, our franchise tax, why we did that is that we didn't want our residents paying more than the city of Sebastian. And we looked at it like we used our right-of-way to get to them. And we don't have a plant, and we looked at that, and that was just fair. It was just looking at...
No, I'm not sure. I just wanted to understand it better because I know the 6% whenever we asked you, but I didn't know how we charged the 6% for using county right-of-way that we charge with every other utility, cable, television, phone company, gas, etc. And because we don't have the right-of-way in the city. So I just wanted to clarify where that was going and how it was established. So I wasn't being critical. I just wanted to understand it clearly.
Well, I did. I know there was a 2009 study on the same thing. And wasn't there a cost of $38 to $50 million to do the hookups?
That was the 2007 Baskerville-Donovan report that you're referring to?
No.
Realistically, there was a discussion with the county staff. I can tell you when the Baskerville-Donovan report came out, I personally spent about maybe 15 minutes in reviewing it with the staff regarding whether I agreed or disagreed in the process of that. I can only look at what we're looking at today. That's all we're looking at. The assumption, let me go back to square one. The assumptions on today, what's on the table today is it's a piping project. The piping project would basically connect where your existing plant used to be, or will used to be, to our existing 3 regional wastewater facilities. The water system will basically hook up to the county's water system through interconnects, additional interconnects that would be required. There would be no plant expansions at this point. It would be based on conditions that exist today.
No, because we're blind. There's no tax fees because we're buying your whole facility. We're buying your plant. We're buying your... That's why. We would have to... I don't think we could charge it. In fact, we'd be charging you twice.
You're buying our plant or buying our plant capacity?
We're buying your whole facility when your debt and everything. That's why we did the same with Sebastian.
But if you're buying our wastewater plant, you're not decommissioning.
Well, we're buying it, and what we do with what we do with it's our business once we buy. That's the same as when I bought Sebastian. Unless you want me to charge it.
No, I agree. If you buy it, it's yours. It's yours to decommission.
Okay. Yeah, it's ours to decommission, and that's why we're buying the whole system.
Now you're just decommissioning the wastewater treatment part of it, leaving the reuse tanks and everything else that's there that still has to be utilized.
We're getting into detail here that we haven't all thought out. And again, I thought that the purpose of this was more a policy discussion. I've asked questions like this for the last 3 months and the city hadn't gotten any. And I think we're getting bogged down a little bit on questions that need to be worked out between staffs after a policy statement has been made by both sides.
Well, the policy statement would depend on the details. There's nothing wrong with details now. This is the time to put them out.
Well, I think basically what we're saying is that we get to the point about decommissioning plant, we'll have the property sector. Over and above everything that's been presented today, that would be part of the negotiation as to where that was going to go and iron that out.
Absolutely.
So I see there's a detail hanging out here that's not a detail yet.
Rob has a good point.
One of the details is going to be that the property that you want to put a public plant on, which is the old postal department area, is Vero Beach City property. So what we're going to do with that, there's going to be a trade there somewhere too.
Kind of going back to Rob's question, I think what Rob is pointing out, and I agree with him, obviously we have to have capacity for storage for reuse. That's part of our accommodation requirements. Whether we build the tanks at that location or whether we put new tanks somewhere else, obviously we'd have to accommodate the reuse capacity like that. So I think that's what he's trying to get at, is to say that.
In addition to your $27 million.
Yeah, our particular, you can build a plant, we build tanks rather frequently, we just went through the one yourself. You can build a 3 million gallon tank for $800,000 every day of the week. They're fairly common. But I think our commitment to you, and this is what you're hearing today, our commitment to you is you will be made whole. Basically on the part of the water system, on the wastewater system, and the reuse system. The reuse system will actually be enhanced because you have customers on the shores of the South Barrier Island that would enjoy additional capacity for reuse. So that's our commitment today. What we're talking about is basically making you whole under this proposal.
How would you suggest that we determine what the definition of being made whole is?
We're talking capacity.
Okay. You're not
Capacity
talking about...
is the definition.
Okay.
I think we definitely need to talk about this amongst ourselves before we can make a policy decision on this. I mean, when I've been doing the numbers on this, I mean, there's 3 council persons here that are going to pay more money in utility bills by having county rates. I think we need to seriously consider the implication of what's going to happen on our tax structure. I'd just like to have some numbers from you guys, and even if they're worst-case scenario. But I really don't see how we can even come close to doing any kind of a policy statement.
Okay, on the numbers, again, we made that presentation to you on February 15th, and we gave you numbers which included a 10-year pro forma of our present system. We asked in December, I asked you in a letter in December for questions, which you haven't gotten yet. We made the presentation February 15th, asked for more questions, haven't gotten any yet. Asked when I wrote Councilmember Turner, asked for questions, haven't gotten any yet. So to come here and be suddenly asked to ask questions, I find incredibly disappointing. But hold on, I'm not done. I'd like to finish up because I'd like to reset the discussion. I mean, we've had all sorts of little things to get involved and say why we shouldn't, why we shouldn't, why we shouldn't. And I want to just sort of put it a little bit into the big picture. I went on February 15th and went to your city council and explained why I was pushing for this, and it's because everything I've gotten from your city, your 2009 consultants report, your Mr. Bolton's report on capital needs or wishes, everything when you put that together indicated rates of well over 100% 10 years from now. That is, city ratepayers would be paying well over 100% of what county ratepayers were paying. But that aside, if we make 2 what I believe to be heroic assumptions, one is that you can match county rates today, and second, that you can keep county rates for the next 10 years. Granted that, regionalization is still the right thing to do. And it's the right thing to do first because it's a little bit less government. Second, because it takes the biggest point source pollution risk off the canal, and your 2007 Baskerville-Robinson report clearly indicates the danger to the canal that's there. And it isn't like the risk is, okay, you shake your head, Mayor. I'll just read a couple lines from it. The City of Vero Beach wastewater treatment facilities.
No, we don't talk about that.
No, you're missing the point. This is from your consultant's report. The City of Vero Beach wastewater treatment facility is located on the high-hazard coastal area that is subject to flooding during storm events of significant magnitude. The environmental impacts as a result of a hurricane or other major catastrophe are magnified for the wastewater treatment facility due to its close proximity to the Indian River Lagoon. So it takes away that point source pollution risk. And even bigger, as a citizen of the City of Vero Beach, is basic civic pride. You've got the toilet on the lagoon. It's time to move it off the lagoon. And that will do many things. It will increase the quality of life of the city as a whole, basically civic pride. It certainly increases the quality of life of those people who live in the area and work in the area. And at the end of the day, financial considerations, considerations for the environment, and considerations of civic pride all suggest that the best thing to do for everybody is to take it off the lagoon. And regionalization is the best way to do that. The other thing it avoids is something like regulatory risk. If somewhere down in the future, just like Monty pointed out, the best place for that plant years ago was right on the lagoon, and the wastewater was, or cleanup water was dumped into the lagoon. And things came and changed, rightfully so, to change that. And part of the regulatory risk that was assumed was the need then to have a deep injection well, which resulted, I believe, in somewhere, I'm not sure the number, but around $10 million more of debt for the city. Well, if the Department of Environmental Protection said you need now to move the plant, well, the estimated cost in your capital plan is $50 million. That alone would require a 20% increase in rates. That risk is removed from the city. So for all those reasons, even if you can have the same rates of the county customers forever, the thing to do would be to remove, or to regionalize and take all that away from the city.
That's all nice, but you're buying the system, so we need a price. We need something to work with.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
The way when I look at the value of your system is determined on what Indian River Shores does. That's how I value your system. I can appraise it real quick. If Indian River Shores does not renew, then we're overpaying for your system. If they do renew, then there might be something as far as a discussion and an appraisal. And so I just want to throw that out for consideration. I see they're like the silent elephant sitting in the room, that their decision is huge on, I would say, y'all. Not necessarily us, but for certainly the city utility. And I don't know where we're going to go with this ultimately today, but one thing that I really would like to say and to drive a point home is, as a commissioner for the residents of the South Barrier Island, I do not want to be put in a situation where another government body is raising rates and me taking flack for it and having no control over it. And what I'm ultimately boiling that down to is those customers are not important to me because they're customers. They're important to me because they're constituents. And they have the opportunity to vote me out of office, or anybody out of office, as a county resident in the event that we raise their rates. They don't have that right now. So ultimately, I respect your autonomy and the decision y'all have to make. I respect Indian River Shores' autonomy and the decisions they have to make. They're very well represented, and they're going to be able to make their decision and live with their residents will live with the decisions they make. But I guess that's the game changer in here that I don't think really anybody's mentioned yet. That to me, it just simply cannot be overlooked.
Yes, Mr. Wade.
Yeah, a couple of things. I want to make my position clear, I guess, on this. But first, Eric, is there any downside whatsoever to the county if we don't have the shores or the city of Vero Beach in our utilities?
The county, I hate to make it sound very simple, the county could exist quite well with or without them. The only reason we're here today is because it's a business decision that makes sense. That's why we're here.
And I wanted that to be clear, because I can't speak for everybody here, but I know my position on this and looking at it is I want to look out for the utility rate payers, whether they're in the city or in the county, and what's best for your constituents and our constituents as the county as a whole. And I believe, based on what I've seen, what I've heard, that the best way to do that, financially and service-wise and everything else, is through a consolidated system. I'm no expert on this, so I could be wrong, but that's my take on it right now. And I'm simply looking today to get some kind of a conceptual idea that you want to move forward with this or you don't want to move forward with it. And if you're going to look at it, I would think you'd want to move forward with it and want to have some kind of a schedule and have a conceptual agreement, and then let the staff start working out the particulars and the minute details, and then come back and have another joint meeting and decide whether we want to take that step or not. I kind of look at it like I'm driving down the road and I stop to help somebody change their tire, and if they say they want my help, I leave. And that's where I'm at here. I'm here as one commissioner saying, I'm convinced, based on what I've heard over the last few years, this is the best thing, not only for the county ratepayers, but also for the city ratepayers. And just better service, better prices, and everything else. And so that's where I'm at. And quite frankly, I'm not here to convince you as a council member that this is something you should do. Quite frankly, it doesn't make a difference to me. You're going to have to deal with your constituents if they think what I'm saying is accurate, and you don't act on it. So, you know, and that's not trying to put anything out there. I think it's just a political fact. So my position is, hey, we'd love to make this thing work for everybody. And if you're interested, I'd love to see our staff work with your staff. And if you're not interested, say so, and let's move on and get over with it.
No, I think you're absolutely right, Gary. For once in your life, no. Now, I'm in the same position you are, Gary. To me, this is an appealing position. We're both going to be winners here, and more importantly, the constituents will be winners. Unified system to me is a win-win situation. I think the next step, I personally am in favor of going ahead with this thing. I don't think it needs to take a vote. If we have to take a vote, we can. But I think the next step, after we go ahead and say yes, would be that Joe and his staff, or our staff and staff, gets together and writes out the actual details. At that time, once those papers are kind of put together, then we both get together individually to go through them, mark them up. Would you agree with this, Joe? Mark them up. Then we do changes again between staff. That might happen 2 or 3 times or 4 times, and then we can come back to a joint meeting. Would that be? Is that about where you guys are going?
Yeah.
Before we
I think before we start directing staff, that we ought to take a vote to direct staff. I understand. Yes, your process is different. Go ahead and take a vote to direct staff to work on documents for consolidation.
Yeah.
And I think it's a conceptual move forward, not a commitment.
No. That's exactly right.
Councilmember Tracy?
Underlying conceptual move forward.
I have a question. Rob, we had asked at one of the last meetings and have asked for many, many months to have some type of document come from your office to let us know exactly what the financial ramifications are to the city of Vero Beach if the shorts leave. Have you provided that document for us yet?
We have received some information from Cayenne this week, and I'm hoping to finalize that if we can this week, and then we will get something prepared in the next week or 2.
And we've been asking for that since December from this council.
And I've been waiting on stuff from our billing company.
I've heard this excuse over and over at every single council meeting, and the time is over. I mean,
and I can't
is
control
absurd.
that consultant.
So to answer your question, Mr. Davis, we do not have those documents. Our city staff is unable to provide us for the last 5 months of exactly the financial ramifications to the city.
However, approximately 20% loss of revenue.
I would say,
And you have to start to distribute your capital and operating expenses over the other remaining 80. So that you're going to
we
have
had the
an
numbers of
increase in
Indian River
revenue.
Shores, and when you look at Indian River Shores in the South Barrier Island, and I'm going out on a limb here, but go ahead and assume you're going to lose those South Barrier Island
Right.
customers, and whatever Indian River Shores does. But if you add those two together, Eric, what were those two percentage-wise? 41%.
It's about 40%.
40% of your
Right.
customer base.
And I understand that, and I've seen the rough documentation that's been provided to us, but our city staff has been unable to
Can I make
do
a
those.
comment about
Unwilling.
that? You're going to receive money for the sale of that infrastructure back to the county and back to Indian River Shores, which is going to offset your debt service right off. You're also going to scale back in what your needs for production are, your needs for personnel costs and everything else, which is going to drop down. That's what I will be showing you. But I couldn't develop all that until I know exactly what the drop in consumption, so that I can look at all the costs that are associated.
And I'm going to go out on it, and from us you would receive a summons to about determining who owns the facility over there. We've already had 2 different legal opinions on it, and I'm not going to wait for another meeting. I'm ready to move forward with those residents of the South Barrier Island, and then let the rest. Maybe I'm going out on a limb. That's just if I can count to 3 on the commission.
Yeah, when we get into the particulars of this too, I look at this kind of like 2 companies merging. And it's not about our employees, it's about our stockholders. And that's the way I look. I mean, I don't want to see anybody lose their job. I don't want to see anybody have any problems in life. But this is about stockholders and not about employees.
The employees are part of the stockholders.
Well, and that's true if they're a utility user. And otherwise they're an employee. You know, when 2 big companies merge, people lose their jobs generally and reorganize.
The employees are part of this county, they're part of this community, and I'm not willing to just discount
the employees.
I absolutely agree with you. They are part of the community. But if they're not a part of the utility system, they're not a part of the stockholder. And the bottom line is it's just like government across this land keeps spending money and money and money and money trying to help have-nots. And a lot of the have-nots don't, not all of them, but a lot of them don't go out and try to better themselves. Because government's willing to step in and do what's politically correct and what feels good for us to do with other people's money. And the bottom line is, this is an enterprise fund. Ours is set up and run like a company and like a business. It's not run like a government entity where the taxpayers support it and subsidize it. And so you either take a hard-nosed look at it or you don't, and that's where it comes in. And it's a philosophy with 5 of you and 5 of us of how you want to approach this. But I would not let an employee losing their job with your company or our company be a determining factor in whether or not this would work. I just think it's a business, it's hard-nosed, it's business decisions. It's not being a socialistic society where we have to do what's good for everybody, even though they aren't a part of the system and they don't use the utilities. By the same token, I take that a step further. And South Barrier Island, I understand it's very likely with court decisions in the past that we would have a great deal of difficulty legally, probably, and correct me if I'm wrong, Alan, to take the South Barrier Island from the city. You have some level of higher ability to keep that than the county would. And I would like to protect the county residents down there for utilities. So by the same token, I would not be in favor in spending millions of dollars in lawsuits to try and take that and salvage the South Barrier Island utilities at the expense of the current utility customers, because they went on the city system because they needed to at the time and they made that decision, and they need to live with it. So I'm just trying to be fair and businesslike and say we got to look at the facts here, not the emotional element.
Yeah, I think we need to stop the dance and make a vote. Tell you the truth, because I'm in favor of this.
Well, Councilmember Turner's wanted to speak, so we'll let her, and then if somebody on your side would like to make a motion, go ahead.
I am convinced that the city rates are not sustainable in being comparable to the county over a 10-year period with our current system. In fact, despite the discussion from staff to the contrary that they think it is, they have undertaken on their own an optimization study of the rates. Therefore, inherently, they do not believe that our current rate structure can sustain it. Having the opportunity to remove the wastewater treatment plant from our river, I think, would be a wonderful asset for our community. For the city itself to be able to undertake that in this 10-year period would cause us to incur an additional $50 million of debt of what we have. Our capital plan includes another $11.5 million of upgrading our RO system. I think merging with the county offers us and our ratepayers a great solution, and I would encourage us all to go forward with this policy.
Well, I'd like to make a motion for the city of Vero Beach to go ahead and accept the concept of consolidation and instruct staff to start discussions for that.
I'll second that.
Under discussion, I would like to just note that we are spending $50 million for a project that, quite frankly, is not going to get us something new. If we can match the rates, why spend the money? What's the hurry to do this year?
Because I've been asking if we can match the rates and if we can do it, and I get no response from us.
I don't agree.
Well, we
No.
I've been asking for 6 months for this exact question.
No, I don't agree.
I
agree with the council.
in front of you.
You haven't had public input.
The problem is that this raises our taxes by 22 and 40%. If you want to look everybody in the eye and say, you raised their taxes and you get the exact same things, I mean, you're going to pay higher water bills. I mean, do you want to look at people and say you're going to pay higher water bills?
Mr. Mayor, I don't mean to interrupt you, but during your discussion before you vote, do you want to open it up to the public?
Absolutely.
Okay. I'll let, they're in the middle of discussion, so I'm going to let Mayor Kramer handle the public comment from this side.
Not you're closer.
Mike Oxner, I'm speaking not as a councilman from the town of Indian Shores, but just as an individual. And I wanted to remind the council, first thing, that I likely will pay more for my water under the county, but I'm willing to do it because I think it's the right thing to do. We've already talked about that. Less government is the best thing. And secondarily, you had asked for a price, and I think the price is there. It's around $100 million when you count the $50 million for moving the plant off the river, the $25 million in your debt, and the other $28 million in connecting. So you're getting $100 million. It sounds like a good deal to me.
Kurt Whittle, in Zero Isles. I got a couple statements and then a question. One, in 2005, we tried to get a grant to move the power plant. Mayfield was all for it. We got nothing. So don't expect too much of a grant. You read that thing about the power plant being flooded. Spoonville Marsh is just going to be flooded just as badly, which is one of your items. So you better watch out for that. Thirdly, the question I have is, you're going to take over the right-of-way of the city, all of their sewer and water lines. Are any of our electric lines on that same right-of-way? And what happens when you try and sell that to Florida Power and Light if they've already got the right-of-way from you on this?
Dr. Stephen Perry, South Beach. I'd like to say that it's important to get the column here. It's important that people consider, as Commissioner Wheeler mentioned, about the shareholders. And I remember a meeting where Mayor White said expansively, we are your board of directors, and you, the ratepayers, are the shareholders. The shareholders in the South Beach area and the pockets around the city do not have the opportunity to vote, as has been commented on. We need to have that. The other thing I would like to object to as to what's come out recently in the press is what I believe are the threats and intimidation coming out of we are going to impose a 25% surcharge if you don't stick with us. Or throwing out figures, which I requested from the city to support the figures thrown out by you, Mayor, and by Mr. Bolton as to the value of the system. I've got no documentation for that. And that's reminiscent of the figures that was thrown out by Councilman Blight of $400 million, the value of the electric system, and by former city manager Gabbard of $200 million for the value of the system, which Councilman Hetty pressed him, and there never was a study. It was off the cuff numbers that were discussed. I think we need to stop that type of thing and have a calm, cool environment for discussions. I agree with what Commissioner Fletcher has said and Commissioner Wheeler. We need to have a proposal go forward. The only modification I would suggest is you set a time frame. But we need to move forward. The South Beach area does not have the opportunity to vote for you. We would like to have that for our elected representatives. It is not equal protection under the Constitution. The attorney's opinion, I believe, I'm not an attorney, but I believe it's wrong because he is a sworn member to uphold the Constitution, which is for equal rights, equal protection, and we should have the right to vote.
Just as a note, I did send you a transaction between Palm Beach County and Royal Palm Beach. I don't know if you got that yet, but I did send that over to you.
I got something which related to bond issues. What I asked for was supporting documentation for your evaluation.
That's one method.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a comment because it's come up twice today about the surcharge, and the city has threatened to raise the surcharge to 25%. That is false. And I went back this morning and watched it twice. The April 19th meeting, if anybody like to do it, it's on our website, where we talked about that, yes, we do charge a surcharge to the town of Indian River Shores and the South Beach residents of 10%. And we've done that for many years. And what the comment was made is it's allowed by state law up to 25%. The point being made was we were charging something that was allowed by law on the lower end of the scale. There was no threat, and let me repeat to the press, no threat to raise it to 25%.
You get over here so I can speak to most everybody face to face. My name is John Burns. I'm president of the South Beach Property Owners Association. And the South Beach community strongly supports the integration, merger, or regionalization of the City of Vero Beach WSI utility with the county's WSI system. We believe such a merger would result in a more equitable, efficient, economical, and just system for the WSI ratepayers who reside outside the city, and that all ratepayers would benefit from the economies of scale that such a regionalized system would bring. The county has the capacity and the know-how necessary to make such a system work. We realize that the city has an investment in its WSI system, and that must be considered, and that it has a responsibility to protect its own city taxpayers. However, both of these concerns can be addressed during the negotiation process. The people living in the South Beach area comprise approximately 90 to 95% of the county residents who are serviced by the city's WSI utility. As such, we have long been held hostage, excuse me, Mayor Craver, for using those words, to decisions by the City Council on rate structures and rates, even though we have no input or say into these decisions, since we cannot vote for the City Council. Further, decisions by the City Council on WSI matters are not subject to review, oversight, or reversal, and there is no authority that we can appeal to if we wish to contest the policies, rate structures, and rates set by the City Council. The South Beach community sincerely hopes that the officials from the city and the county can reach agreement on a regional WSI system. We believe such a system would benefit all three jurisdictions, the city, the county, and Indian River Shores. Thank you.
John? Chuck Methane, I live over on Trade Winds, just down the street from Jay. I applaud the council members today that are stepping forward with a review of this concept. I think that when you drive over the bridge, to see that plant there is not a proper thing for our civic pride. I think Commissioner Solari discussed it earlier in very eloquent terms. I hear us talk a lot about the things of the past. I wish we would talk about the things in the here and now. I think as citizenry we get frustrated with what goes on in Washington, D.C., where you have two houses and people within that can't get together to solve simple problems. Here's a situation where we could at least take a look at a concept, come together as in a oneness of spirit, and really look at what's best for the citizenry, be it if they live in the city or if they live in the county. And when we talk about what goes on here, what a beautiful thing, you know, if we talk a little bit about the future, if that someday, if that waste facility went away and there was a civic center, a community center that could assist the hotels that are in the city and all over the county, it could be a ecotourism center, kayaks, things of this nature, walking trails. I mean, to the south of that, I think there's a lot of land that has already been purchased that's in a preserved situation that could have walking trails through. I don't know why we don't talk about some of that. Why we don't talk about what could be 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Because that's what I hope when people get elected, have a bit of the vision on. What's the future hold? Thanks.
I'll stand up here so people can see me. Thank you, Chairman Solari, for allowing public input, and Mayor Kramer for allowing public input. I appreciate it. We heard the word concept here today. This is all about a concept. There's a lot of people that I've spoken to in the last number of weeks. Everybody knows that this day was coming about looking at the possibility of consolidating with the county. A lot of people could not be here today, and I'll call them the regular people, the regular workers out on the block. A lot of them that have, and I have water, sewer, and electric. A lot of my friends that I talk to and other acquaintances, they have all the utilities. And a lot of the people are asking the questions, you know, why are we doing this now? Is it going to cost us more money in the long run? That's what they're really concerned about. You know, we've heard, you know, from the number of people up here, how this is going to look and everything else. We heard also we heard some assumptions. Again, back to the word concept. I would ask the city council, because you represent us. You represent us, the voters. We have an investment there. I would ask you to do this. As you look at it today in concept, please don't lock yourselves down. They put the concept on the table. All the dollars may not be there. There may be more dollars that we're entitled to as ratepayers, or the ones of us on the sewer side of the house, because that's really where it hits you. It hits the people on the sewer side of the house when you talk about all this piping and everything else. That's where your rate really goes to the roof. I would ask you as council members, please look at those details. Look at down the road how this is going to impact us. Also, as a taxpayer, I would ask you, this is one of our enterprise funds. Please look at that and see how it's going to impact us on the tax side of the house. We cannot afford to pay any more. We can't pay any more in our rates. We can't pay any more in our taxes. And I hope you guys understand that. Please look out for us. Look at the details. We heard it today. The details, the devil's in the details. You know, when you say the word details to me, that means money. Money, money. Is it going to cost us more? I know a lot of you have been pushed to get you here to do this today. A lot of it is based on politics. The media has pushed a lot of this. Please do what's in the best interest of the people that are on the system. There's a lot of people that are on the commission, not a lot, but some of the people that are on the commission, and some of the folks that are on city council are not even on sewer. So think of how it's going to impact me, a sewer payer. Are my rates going to go up? You know, I worked real hard a number of years ago. There was a number of scheduled rate increases that were going to take place, and we had worked with the last city manager to not put those increases in place. We redid our business model. Please don't move forward and come down the road 4 or 5 years we're going to have to pay more. That's very, very important. If you guys look at the details. You have a very good consultant that you all agreed to hire here a few weeks ago. Look at all those numbers first before you commit to the county. Do what's in the best interest of your people and also the ratepayers. At the end of the day, we don't want to pay more. Also, we have land involved in this. We have the postal land that belongs to the city taxpayers. We also have the land that the sewer plant sits on. You're going to have to do a vote to see if people want to put that out there to sell it or give it away. So those are details. Those are very, very important details. So I would have asked you guys that represent me, please look at all that before you make a heavy commitment here on this concept. You know, if you guys agree to this concept that's on the table, are you agreeing to everything that they presented you today that talked about?
And I'd be happy to show you those graphs if you'd let me at some point. There are some people that are worse off. They're big users of water only, and they're beyond, and it's for the smallest of meters. But the vast majority are better off. Mr. Day, I've actually plugged in Mr. Day into the model, and I've looked at all of his bills. Mr. Day is better off. He's a water sewer customer. He is better off with county rates. He is better off with FP&L rates. And that even makes the assumption that you include worst-case property tax increases. He is better off in every scenario. And so I think if he's representative of the working class, I think they'll be very happy to see you guys regionalize. My final comment is, with the exception, I think, one person in the room, we are all county residents. We need to stop looking at ourselves as, I'm in the city, I'm in the shores, I'm in South Beach, I'm in the county. We all share one thing in common. We're all county residents, and for God help us, let's do what's in the best interest of us as a whole. Thank you.
Any more further comment? Pete?
My name is Pete Gardner. I think what's going on today is good. It's interesting. consolidation sounds like it's probably the way to go, and I'm a county resident, by the way. But the thing that interests me the most is the fact that, and everybody said this is a business. And since it's a business to make money, I assume, correct? Every business should make money. Now, the city is making money on the water and sewer, and the money that they make off of the water and sewer goes into a lot of the areas of the city that we all enjoy if you live in the city. For instance, police department, parks and recreation, those kinds of things. What I would be interested in, always interested in better rates, or the same rates. I would be interested in the city making a real effort to let their constituents, Wesley, their constituents, know how much money this is going to be for them to have equal rates to the county. In other words, how much in ad valorem taxes are they going to have to pay to overcome the money that they will not make from this business? And I believe that's part of the, the program that you need to look into. And otherwise, I think that it's good that we're going to press on. I think that in the long run, we all understand we want less government and we want better prices. Thank you.
Any further comment? If not, can I have the motion restated?
Sure. Mr. Fletcher made a motion to go ahead and accept the concept of the consolidation and have staff start working on negotiations. The motion was seconded by Councilmember Carroll.
Council, any further discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to say a few things. There's been several comments about employees, and part of the responsibility of an elected official is to be concerned about the employees. The decision should not be made based solely on the employees. The decision certainly needs to be made on what's good for the entire community, but the willingness to just discount employees troubles me. It also troubles me that some of the tone and some of the animosity between the city and the government and the county government is just something that is unacceptable. We shouldn't be that. We're all one community, and there shouldn't be this tension and this animosity between the two. I've heard some comments that the South Beach people can't vote, and although I can't disagree that with that, they can't go to the polling place and vote, but I'm also well aware of how people get elected, and South Beach can control at any time, I think, who sits on city council simply by the dollars they're willing to contribute to the campaign. To say that they don't have representation, I don't think is accurate. I know that when I vote in a way that I think is good for the community, and South Beach is part of the community. The large water user council members that was referred to by one of the speakers, I'm probably one of those. So I understand the consequences of that. And last, the comments about running things as a business. Now, government should not be run as a business. Government should be run as a government. And I recently spent some time in a nation where it was pretty clear by the infrastructure that was available, by the water that was available to the people, that the government was more concerned about the profits to those governing authorities than they were about delivering essential services to the people. Government should not be run as a business. Government should be run as a government.
further discussion?
I'd just like to make one comment, and that is that I do have a concern with the staff of the county sitting down with our staff, because the word that you used, Mr. Petty, was animosity. We've already seen that in this room today, that Mr. Baird has said that he would not accept the management, that they would probably be cut out of the water sewer, which includes, of course, the manager of our water and sewer department. And for these two to get together may be some animosity. There may be some concerns there. So I would just like to place that on the table. I have also voiced my concerns many times in trying to get numbers and documents and the exact financials out of our own water sewer department. So if we do vote to go forward on this, I am going to lay the charge on Mr. Falls that he does go to the staff below him and let them know that if this is a policy decision of the council, that needs to be funneled through the city manager's office.
I apologize if I offended. I just wanted to be really direct. We couldn't afford to have two full management systems. I was just trying to be honest and not. I hope I didn't offend everybody. I didn't want to sugarcoat it. That's how it has to be.
I appreciate your honesty.
Without any further comment, would you guys like to call?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed. Motion passes 4-1.
Thank you, Mayor. Moving over to the county side, we'll ask the commissioners if there are any final comments before somebody makes a motion. Commissioner Davis.
No final comments on the regular motion, but I think that, and I think what Ms. First of all, I'll move the same motion on the county side.
Okay, we have a motion to approve a second from Commissioner Davis, a second from Commissioner Weir. Under discussion, I'd just like to make a few last comments. One is that I appreciate everybody coming here. I spent 2 years just trying to open a dialogue. So if anything that I said was taken as animosity, it's really not. It was more frustration. I've been very frustrated by how long it took two governing bodies who are on the same piece of property to get together and discuss something which to me, and I'm happy to be wrong on this, but to me it was a no-brainer. And I'll be happy to be proved wrong in this process, because I'm with Commissioner Weaver. At the end of the day, it's your decision. I may speak up as a citizen, but as a county commissioner, it's your decision. If three of you decide that it's the way to go for your constituents, I'm pleased as punch. If you all make a clear decision not to go ahead, I'm pleased as punch. I got plenty to do. I would like to say something about, though, the financial decision. Two things. One, Commissioner Heddy, I disagree with you. An enterprise fund, as I see it, it's questionable whether or not it is an essential service. In this community, it's a service we provide, but I believe it ought to be run as a business and not as a government, because I find government incredibly inefficient. And it's certainly not the way I'd like all my money to be spent to be as like a government. But more importantly, in response to Ms. Gardner and others, whether or not we should make money. No. We should run it like a business. But the county system is to make enough money so we provide for the needs of the system, and I believe that's the appropriate way. We're not trying to make a big rate of return, and we're not trying to make a lot of money which we can put somewhere else. We're trying to run basically the best system we can to deliver the best service we can and basically protect the resource, which is water. And that's an important part of what we do and want to do, is protect the resource. So, with that said, I'm just pleased as punch that we're here today and taking a step forward. And I hope the staffs have a great time doing their work, and I look forward to meeting you again.
Yeah. I'm glad you're pleased as punch.
Hate to see him if he wasn't pleased.
I guess really, I appreciate what Ms. Carroll said, Councilwoman Carroll, and hope that that if it does start to go in that direction, we have something similar to what we wound up hammering out like Dodgertown. I think that was a very successful model for us to maybe duplicate in this instance. I guess really the only thing that does concern me if we would walk away from here is we at this point don't have time frames. And I'm not trying to get it done tomorrow or in the next 7 days, but I don't know that I want to leave this meeting today with it being open-ended until And I don't have the answer about what it would be reasonable for everybody to come back with. And with that, I'll ask for other people's opinions.
So why don't we take care of this motion and then put that next one on the table? Okay. Commissioner Wheeler, do you have any?
Yeah, just a couple of comments. When Mr. Hagan says that, I think he's a total disregard to the employees. That's not my intent at all. I worry about employees. But I also know that if I had 3 lawn people and half my lawn disappeared, I'm going to be 1 or 1.5 people short to do the work. You don't pay people for something you don't need to pay them for. And I think that's a responsibility. And that's the way business looks at things. It's not the way government looks at things. They end up trying to keep people on the payroll when they shouldn't be on the payroll. And that's all I'm saying. It needs to be run efficiently and effectively. I think profit versus enterprise, Bob described very well. And I don't see an animosity between the city and the county. I never have. But I have seen different personality conflicts between individuals that sit on the commission of the city council. That doesn't
What do you mean by that?
doesn't mean that the city.
You're out of order, Craig.
And I think, and I've been serving with Bob for the last couple of years, and oftentimes, in my opinion, when he appears to be angry, he is frustrated. And I think we all do that. So I don't feel any animosity or any indifference or animosity toward any of you. I know all of you, like all of you. I want to see the best thing done. The other thing is oftentimes government and people that are running operations with other people's money seem to be more generous and compassionate than those that are running businesses that have to get a profit and a bottom line and have to maintain some type of a structure that pays their investors, I guess. So it's not anything directed at employees or individuals. It's just a matter of, what makes sense business-wise. And I would say that there is a difference when you get into certain things that, from my perspective anyway, the government is charged to do, and that's what, for instance, maybe medical services, particularly law enforcement, military, building roads, etc. And those are things that we have to do, and sometimes you have to prepare for the worst in law enforcement, for instance. You may never have to use that, so that's an additional expense. This is kind of cut and dry. You provide a service, you pump water, you get rid of sewer, there's a certain cost, so you need so many employees to employ. You may have 100 police officers and only need 10 at any given time, but the day you need 100, you got to have 100. So I just want to make it clear that I wasn't taking shots at your employees, Brian.
Commissioner O'Brien?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As an elected official, I like to take the view that hopefully when my time is over, I'm measured by what happens 20 or 30 years in the future. And we have a vision to do what's best for the community. And it may not be apparent today or tomorrow or next week, but 20 years down the road, hopefully somebody will step back and say, you know what, they made a smart decision. And we can look at a lot of decisions previous elected bodies have taken, the purchase of the land for Riverside Park and all the conservation land we've purchased that, maybe today somebody didn't agree with the price we paid, but 20 years from now, they're going to say, man, look at all this green space. This is a wonderful community. I am firmly believe that going to a unified regional system is going to be the best thing for the entire community 20 years down the road. Maybe tomorrow, I don't want to get bogged down and somebody may pay $1 more for their water next week or $1 less. But 10 years from now, 5 years, 20, this gives us the best opportunity to provide some rate stabilization to everybody. And then everybody will be treated the same. Everybody will have a voting voice on who sets the rate. So I think the motion you all passed, the motion we're going to pass, is that visionary step where people will say 20 years from now, boy, both those two groups made a smart decision to unify and regionalize, and it benefits the entire community. And then when you throw in the aspect that if we dismantle the treatment facility on the river, that can become a park or whatever everybody wants to do with it, that's another benefit that 20 years from now, everybody will say, you know what, that was a great decision to get that off the river. What a beautiful community we all live in. So I think this is our best step. I think it's it's like anything, there may be growing pains as we get through it, but again, I firmly believe down the road, people will say that was a great decision to unify and regionalize. So I'm fully in support of moving forward.
Thank you, Commissioner Fletcher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, everyone, for all of your input. One of the most poignant words I heard today was serving the customer, serving the constituent, serving the shareholder. That's what this is all about. This has nothing to do with the boards. This has nothing to do with our board, the staff, although everything to do with the input. And I'm glad today that it appears to be being knocked off center. That was the #1 concern of many of the constituents I heard from. Today's action appears to be the representative action of much of the input that I've received. And I trust it appears that we all have received that type of information. Bottom line, from the very beginning, we have award-winning water here in Indian River County. Eric didn't tout on that too much, but we have one of the best water supplies here in Indian River County. And we have the infrastructure, we'll have the acquired infrastructure, we have the capacity, the service, the quality. Now we just have to discuss the price and get all those numbers down pat. But I believe today's action is best representing our citizenry. Thank you.
No more comments, so I'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Mr.
Thank you.
Chairman.
Commissioner Davis.
Yes, I guess probably the best thing now for us to do is for us to ask our staff about how much time they think they're going to need. Or then let the city ask theirs, and then
I think what we need to do is, first of all, we're going to be in the, right now, it's going to be a lot of legal work, and documentation stages for both of us. We'll have to accumulate the leases, things like that. I think what to do is give us about a week to 10 days to come up with a calendar, put target dates, and we'll know if we're slipping. And Monty's always been real, right now we're both going to have to collect information. We're going to collect a lot of information from the city and get, the leases and things like that on the land. And let me get a calendar together that'll be, and Monty and I'll work on a calendar with dates. So I think we have to have targeted things, certain things, but the huge portion of this is going to be, of course, legal and the legal documents, affiliates. So let's work on a calendar and come back. I don't want to do it on the fly here. We'll work on a calendar. We'll know if we're selecting certain events. Also, we need to work with both groups to find out what's important once we buy it. To when will we get, what's important to each group, as far as what improvements you want to see for both areas as we're all working together. Right. I guess my answer is I'll come back probably in a couple of weeks. Monty and I'll get together. We'll develop a calendar and bring the vote forward so and we'll keep you abreast of it.
Joe, can we get a committee maybe to come by the meeting of May 10th?
that's 10 days, or you need 2 weeks?
Because of the deadline, let me, I've got to get with Alan, we've got to get with a few. And I'd also like to, how we're going to approach it, inside and outside in some areas.
May 17th?
Yeah, come back on the 17th.
Yeah, let me give you, I'd really
20
appreciate
days?
that.
Okay, let's ask the city if they think that is some serious vote for them.
Sounds like a great program. I'm delighted to have some kind of a timetable
Yeah.
that works.
And we're getting somewhere between that and
This is mainly for the city, but I would like to have a representative from the county city team present to us at least monthly on the progress, and since our meetings are simultaneously on our Tuesday, first meeting of the month, maybe we could have it as a standard item, Tammy, on our evening meeting on the third Tuesday of the month, where we have an update to the council of exactly the progression of this.
That would work better.
That's perfect, because our first one's going to be on the 17th.
Yeah, so that makes it third, right off on the schedule. Brilliant, Councilman.
Beautiful.
Any other comments or any other comments before we wrap up? Any other comments from the?
Yeah, I'd like to thank my staff for all the hard work today.
Yes.
Financial and my utility and the city staff. And Monty's always been great to deal with.
Any last comments from the public? I'd like to thank everybody for coming here today and have a great day and a great weekend. Thank you.